I've been watching a lot of F1 Drive to Survive lately on Netflix. I wanted to get into watching the sport, and I figured that was a great way to do it. It follows all of the teams, the drivers, and even the staff involved. I think some of the team principals are my favorite characters. And I don't know how they do it, but Netflix really gets into some places that I think the teams would not want to be public, and they get past a lot of the barriers that the other press and journalists just don't get to break. Really get to learn a lot about these drivers and a lot about the team principals and what they think about the races and what they think about what's happening in F1 and everything that goes on around the competition. You really get into the mindset of a driver and a team principal, two people who have a lot to gain or lose from these races. Being able to hear what a professional athlete and a competitor at that level thinks of when they're doing something as crazy as F1, driving these cars 200 miles an hour, risking their lives for, entertainment or points or money, whatever it is that drives them to go at these speeds, is something phenomenal. They give some great advice that is not only for F1, but for anybody competing in anything or trying to get anywhere in something. And even when they're not giving advice, their actions on the track speak volumes. And to really understand the point that I want to make today, you have to understand how much money is involved in F1. I'm speaking in terms of the 2020 season and all before, right? Before they introduced the spending cap, and I think it's at 140 million now as of 2021. I'm still watching the 2020 season. So teams like Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari are spending upwards of $300 to $400 million a season. And this money is to pay the drivers, to pay the staff, to pay the team principal, and to run all the facilities involved with everything going on, and to travel with all these big setups they have. It is an extremely expensive sport to get into at the lowest level and extremely expensive sport to run at the highest level. And so when these drivers climb into these cars, whether it's Mercedes spending 400 million or Williams Racing spending 120, they are hopping into a car that costs tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and thousands of hours to develop. So there's not only a lot at stake for the driver to win and to perform, but there's a lot at stake for the company as far as the car goes and retaining sponsors. And so at the beginning of every race, they line all these cars up on the grid in the position that they qualified in the previous day, and then they play a little noise and everybody clears off of the track, and it's just the racers, their cars, and the race engineer in their ear. Imagine you're there in the car. Your team has been working tirelessly all season to try and make this dream a reality. Your sponsor believes in you. They've invested tons of money into your car and into your ability. There's a lot of faith put into you, and it's your time to deliver. That's a tremendous amount of pressure for somebody like me or you. But for an F1 driver, they've been there so many times. They don't even feel it anymore, and they're laser focused on what they need to do to win or to deliver. But sometimes those red lights go out and all the cars take off the grid into the first turn, and they don't all make it out. Tires touch, causing spins, technical failures on the car, which aren't uncommon, or a rare driver error can put your car into the wall. These drivers train their whole lives to run these tracks, and somebody trained their whole lives to build that car, and somebody else trained their whole life to finance it all. And to see in a blink of a second how fast things can change and how fast a season can change, because they're not going to come back to that circuit till next year. If somebody puts their car into the wall and has to retire at Monza in 2020, they can't try again until 2021, until a whole nother season. And that's if they even have a seat. Remember, there's only 20 drivers in F1, and those spots are slowly being replaced with younger and younger drivers. Some of these guys don't get another chance, and that can be pretty heartbreaking. And I'm only a spectator. I honestly have no stake in these races, but even as a spectator, I feel the frustration. And you would think that the driver would be angry and bitter about it for a while. Sometimes they are, but most of the time when it happens, they cut to the driver. He's angry for maybe 30 seconds. Maybe he puts his hands in his head, or maybe he yells something. But as soon as the race engineer comes on the radio and tells them, okay, you can get out of the car, or go to P0, which I think is like they just get out of the car and then they tow it or something, it's right back into business mode. In fact, the team principal gets angry for a second as well, but he has another car on the track that usually needs to race. And once they make it back to the pits, it's all technical, it's all analytical, it's all information that they've gained. And at the end of the race, they come together in this room, and it's like 8 monitors on both sides of the table, and they wear these headsets, and they just talk about what they learned. Nobody's angry at each other. Even if it's a technical failure or a pit stop failure or something that could very easily be blamed on a single person, They don't. They just talk through their problem, look at the loss, learn from it, and do better next time. And for a sport with so much at stake, so much money involved, and so many people involved, it is very inspiring to see how the drivers and how the staff and how everybody handles these losses and how they learn from them. Losing isn't always a bad thing, and you are reminded of that time and time again. In the end, it's all just data, and how you interpret it. I mean, the action has already happened. You've already lost. And whether you choose to use that data, interpret it, and make yourself better from it, or just be frustrated about it, throw it all away, and try again next time, is up to you. To finish off this video, I just want to leave you with a quote from legendary F1 driver and 3-time world champion, Niki Lauda.
Winning is one thing, but out of losing, I always learned more.
Because you don't waste time blaming somebody else, analyze yourself, change yourself to be successful.